Yo, hi guys, welcome to another video. We did make it to level 94, well almost 94 on this VD Spellslinger Necromancer that I started my league with. And even though we died, I consider the build a full success as a league starter, and I want to quickly go over all the changes that I made since the last video in this video. So because I never start videos like this and I think it's important that you guys know, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel because there's a lot more awesome YouTube videos going to come. And if you're subscribed and you tick the notification bell, you will get notified every time a new video comes out. Also, make sure to follow my live stream on twitch.tv/CatmasterOP, where I stream almost daily. And every other Saturday, we have the Faded Connections Path of Exile community podcast together with Balor Mage and 2 random guests. So make sure you check out the podcast action either on Balor's YouTube, on my live stream on twitch.tv/CatmasterOP, as well as all the audio platforms that we're available on. So VD Spellslinger Necro is certainly a hot topic this league. Almost everyone league started with one, and almost everyone recommended it as a super good league starter build. And it is just quality of life. You just throw down your VDs together with the Desecrates while just firing wand attacks, and it's a blast. Now, I went a little bit a different route. The builds that I recommended, the build guides by Zizaran and the video by Gucci Pradas, are excellent, right? That's also the reason I'm not gonna make an extensive build guide for this build, because I think there's just a lot of quality build guides already out. So if you want to learn more about this build, make sure you check out the videos. I'll once more link them in the description down below. But I did things slightly different because I was insisting for a long time to just run a 5-link instead of the tabula that I had found, because I kind of wanted the defensive value of the chest piece. I was just running VD Spellslinger with Hypothermia, Spell Cascade, and Inspiration for a very long time, until I kind of hit a wall. I really wanted to progress the content. I felt like I was survivable enough, but I didn't really feel like I had enough damage to take on the single targets. After a while of thinking that I have to put Elemental Focus as a 6th link onto my VD and then run Herald of Ash, which I was doing for a while, I realized that it's actually better damage to not use Herald of Ash and to reserve a second 5-link instead of turning my current 5-link VD into a 6-link. So I put in Detonate Dead in order to benefit from the leftover corpses, because Desecrate always spawns more corpses than you need. Every Desecrate spawns 5 corpses, but VD only consumes 3 of them. Now, of course, both of them are supported by Spell Cascade, so it's times 3, but I'm just saying, on average, like for every VD cast or for every single Spell Cascade instance of VD, there's 2 corpses left over. So you can use Detonate Dead to explode one of those 2 corpses. So what I'm trying to say is you don't need additional corpse generation to still use DD on top of it. And DD is a lot of damage and also based on the corpse's max life partially, just like VD. But the base damage that comes from the corpse's max life is double. This is 6%, VD is only 3. And if you've watched me do things on stream, I actually did some 3 Watchstone Conquerors in the middle region. It was doing very well against single target. Of course, it's not mind-blowing single target, but still, it was much better than just running VD. But it is costly. I didn't have a lot of mana left over. I wasn't able to squeeze in Herald of Ash. And yeah, what else did I change? I had a really, really good wand. I think I crafted this with Harvest by just facilitating a wand with caster modifiers. And sadly, the spell damage is not pure spell damage, right? Otherwise, we could hope to get the mana off. This is a tier 4 spell damage on top of a hybrid spell damage mana with +1 all spell skill gems and cast speed. Now, normally for Volatile Dead, you definitely want a wand with 2 elemental flat damages to the wand attacks. Why? Because Spellslinger support gives you a portion, actually 100% at level 20. Earlier it's just a fraction of it, but now it's 100% of the damage of the equipped wand as added spell damage on your Spellslinger skills, which is really, really good. Now, the reason that I didn't do that is because I didn't have a wand with good elemental damages until I came by this wand. And then when I had this wand, I was like, okay, this is too good to not use it. Even though I tried to craft better ones, I didn't feel like I had anything better. And +1 all spell skill gems does obviously not only affect your damage directly by bumping up Volatile Dead, but also indirectly makes your build better, right? Like, you just, most of the abilities that you're using are spell skill gems, so they all get an additional level. Like Steel Skin gets an additional level, Flammability gets an additional level, everything gets an additional level. To sum up my skill setups again, we're using Volatile Dead and Detonate Dead in the same 6-link, effectively as a dual 5-link with Spellslinger, Hypothermia, Inspiration, and Spell Cascade. Inspiration depends on inspiration charges, which you generate when you spend mana with supported skills. Now, because you're using Spellslinger, you're not spending any mana on the supported skills, so you need to generate the inspiration charges otherwise, and that's why we're using inspiration also on our Frenzy Barrage setup. So that every time we use the Frenzy wand attack with the Barrage support in order to trigger our spells, we also generate inspiration charges as seen up here, and based on inspiration charges, maximum 5 inspiration charges by the way, we get a bonus to the elemental damage on the inspiration supported spells. Really, really good. Great setup. And much better than using inspiration on like a normal skill that you self-cast, because then you're much more frequently losing your inspiration charges after spending a total of X mana, which is like 730 at level 19 and 800 at level 20. So if your skill is expensive, then you lose them fast. But since Frenzy is only like 8 mana, you can literally attack 100 times before you lose your inspiration charges. And usually you're done with the map by then. To supplement, of course, we're using a Spellslinger Desecrate with Spell Cascade, which generates the corpses that we're exploding with VD and DD. And then we're using Bone Offering and Wave of Conviction in a trigger socketed spell when you use a skill wand. These automatically go off whenever we use a skill, when we dash around, making sure that both Bone Offering as a self buff as well as Wave of Conviction are always active. Wave of Conviction applies minus 25% elemental resistance as exposure debuff on the enemy. Now, we're using Avatar of Fire because otherwise Wave of Conviction would still deal a portion physical damage, and then I wouldn't be doing physical reflect maps because that's really scary. So, because I was already pathing around this part of the tree, I picked up Avatar of Fire just for the sake. You don't need Avatar of Fire in this build. It doesn't serve any other function but to avoid dealing physical damage. Also, because I don't have any flat fire damage to spells, I think it's better to make sure that always the highest damage element is fire from Wave of Conviction, so they always get fire exposure, because it could also cause lightning exposure. Then Flame Dash, Smoke Mine are my mobility skills with Second Wind and Arcane Surge. Often discussed in the community is that Dash is obviously way better than Flame Dash, especially if you're able to put Second Wind on it, but you need 159 dex for Dash at level 21, which I thought I didn't have. Apparently I do have it, so I don't see why I'm using Flame Dash in this build. Don't copy this, just do whatever other people say about Dash. I'm pretty sure that when I made the decision to run Flame Dash, I didn't reevaluate it later on when I had higher dex. When I initially made the decision, I didn't have the dex for Dash. And the last setup that I'm using is Steel Skin with Second Wind, Enduring Cry, and Infernal Cry. Typically, people will recommend you to go Call to Arms and to just use one War Cry. I personally found that Infernal Cry is exceptionally good if you're trying to push your build to do content, to farm maps for which you just don't have high enough damage output, because once you Infernal Cried a pack and you kill one of them, that monster explodes and likely kills another one, that one explodes, and sooner or later you have a chain reaction that takes the entire pack with it. So if you're trying to push ahead with the build, Infernal Cry is very good. Nevertheless, I didn't want to drop Enduring Cry, but if you use Call to Arms, you can only use one War Cry because they will share their cooldown and they will be instant, so you don't get +1 cooldown from Second Wind. So when I use one War Cry, I can't use the other until they're both off of cooldown again. I like using both because I like keeping up my endurance charges. Enduring Cry is like a very, very strong potion because it gives you almost 2000 life back over 1 second. And Infernal Cry has the explosion effect and covers enemies in ash, causing them to take increased fire damage, which is extremely helpful both in clear and in boss situations. If you want more information on the amazing new war cries, I have a video where I talk about my use of these two war cries in the build. So for the gear, we have a life gain on hit for your spells ring that I just crafted like that. At 62 max life, didn't need any additional resists on the ring. I was fine, right? Weakness capped for most maps. So we just want this because life gain on hit by spells, if you summon this many volatile dead balls, they're hitting a lot of enemies, so I figured it might be a good choice to have that as an additional layer of life sustain. I'm using an unset ring. Oh yeah, flammability, self-cast for those tanky opponents. Usually you don't need it, but if you're in a boss situation, I don't think it costs you anything to quickly cast a curse that will then last 15 seconds. It's just something that I can do every 15 seconds, and it reduces fire resistance significantly. The ring itself has life, dex, and a fire and chaos resist craft. This is something I always try to tell people in my videos. If you can afford to not have high single element or double element resist on your gear, then definitely make sure you craft the unveilable mods, elemental and chaos resistance, because they just make your build so much better. Chaos resistance used to be luxury, but nowadays you definitely want positive chaos resist. Ideally, you even want to be close to cap or cap, which is 75%, just like with elemental resistances. I'm also using a Stygian Vise that I crafted for reduced flash charges used and a tier 1 life. And yeah, like I said, tabula rasa, because I wasn't able to 6-link the piece that I would have liked to wear. It's, by the way, still not 6-linked, still in my stash. I played another character. I'm rolling another character right now. But yeah. This shield is one of the best items that I found in the entire league. This is 49 intelligence, 109 life, 62 mana, 16 all res, 41 cold res. Really, really nice spiked shield. And even though the witch is more the armor ES shield kind of type, you wouldn't necessarily play evasion ES, especially on this side of the tree. I just thought this shield is too good to be true, too good to not to wear, right? I also had a double tier 1 life pair of boots, which I accepted crafted movement speed on because I thought, you know, double tier 1 life is worth a lot. I need a lot of flat life. Standard amulet with just good life. Helmet with nothing really. The helmet is probably the weakest piece in the gear set. And then the latest edition, relatively close to my death. I think the day that I died or the day before, I managed to get Flesh and Spirit as a, I think I did get them as a drop from the Syndicate. I'm not sure. They're League exclusive. They're exclusive to Rampage League. And what Flesh and Spirit does is they give you the Rampage modifier, which is the nice little kill counter on the top left. Let's quickly do a map so you can see what Rampage does. Rampage counts kills and gives you a couple of bonus effects upon reaching certain kill count thresholds. This also, every time you enter a new tier of Rampage, recovers 20% of your life, and kills grant you an additional Val Soul if you've Rampaged recently. Now, funny enough, I didn't use a Val skin in this build because I didn't actually get to find a Val skill, or I didn't think about which one to use. Probably should have used Val Righteous Fire just for the spell damage bonus. But a large component of my damage is the Corpse Explosion of VD and DD, which doesn't scale with spell damage. So I don't know. But yeah, just to quickly show you a map for the viewing pleasure, the build was balling really hard. Like, we really didn't have to work too much in order to get things done anymore. And, you know, if something felt like work, then I would just Infernal Cry and it would just explode as a whole. So this is a 81 map, Conservatory, tier 14. I just had that in my inventory, otherwise I would have probably tried to show you something harder, but I didn't want to search for very long. And now for the boss damage, with flammability, Infernal Cry. Again, nothing special. It is a tier 14 boss after all, so they are pretty tanky, and it has to have 47% more monster life and chance to avoid ailments, which doesn't really do anything. But you can do the boss, you can stand still, you take almost no damage because you have glancing blows and you're block capped with Bone Offering up via Mistress of Sacrifice, right? Obviously you pick Mistress of Sacrifice. You pick basically everything that affects your build in Necromancer, because Essence Glutton doesn't really do a lot for you because you don't need mana, you don't need Energy Shield with Spellslinger, unless of course, this is really great if you make an ES build out of it. Later on you can decide to go low life, or maybe you can make a CI variant. I don't think so because you couldn't run Discipline, but I'm sure you can somehow get it together. But yeah, Mindless Aggression doesn't really do anything for me except for minion damage. Yeah, and these things are all not really that great. Plaguebringer and Corpse Pact are the bread and butter for the build. Mistress of Sacrifice is the defensive buff. And for Uberlap, I took Commander of Darkness because it's just a little bit of damage and a little bit of all elemental res, making gearing a little bit easier. And damage is damage, right? The same thing goes for the minion damage minor nodes in the Ascendancy. Those get converted with Spiritual Aid, which makes minion damage also affect you. That makes it so that Lord of the Dead is actually a valuable pickup as well. And if you can get good cluster jewels, which will be easier after the new patch, use good cluster jewels. I just went for Heart of Flame because I didn't have access to a usable cluster jewel. Certainly, if I was to continue this build and make it more fit for endgame than it already was, I definitely would use cluster jewels over Heart of Flame. Pantheons are always situational. I've just mentioned it because most of the time people really want to know these. I recommend using Soul of Lunaris while you're farming and Soul of Solaris while you're bossing. That's generally what people say. I had Soul of the Brine King because for a while leveling I was worried I would get stunned and I wouldn't be able to move away when I block a stunning hit. But that shouldn't be a problem anymore at this point. And then Soul of Ralakesh is what I typically take early on because physical damage is a real problem for squishy builds. But at this point, I think also being done with all the labs, we don't really need the phys damage reduction while moving anymore. So you could go for Soul of Shakari for reduced chaos damage taken, and obviously you could also augment these. Again, Pantheons are very situational. There's always different best Pantheons for different situations. Generally speaking though, either Soul of Ralakesh or Soul of Shakari for the minor ones, and then Soul of Lunaris for farming, Soul of Solaris for bossing. Alright, that's that. It's already a way longer video than I would have wanted to make it. I'll link the POB of the final almost level 94 character in the description down below. Keep in mind though that this is not a build guide. This is not like, you know, you should do it like this. It's just, this is how I did it. Keep in mind I'm playing solo self-found and the character was in hardcore before it died. So I had a limited availability of stuff to make things work with. But I hope you learned a little bit from my insightful summary of the build and that you're going to be able to make your own build much better from the things that I told you here. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and follow the Twitch channel to catch me live if you have any questions at all. Thank you guys for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.